Hi, my name is Bud Andrus. I'm a member of the Oracle Autonomous Database Product Management team, and I'm going to lead you through a deep dive into data loading. The data loading tools are part of the Oracle Database Actions tool suite. They're super powerful, really easy to use by virtually any user. They're all GUI, no scripting, no programming, just point and click data loading. You can create new tables, you can load data into existing tables, you can even merge data from files into existing tables and update rows. Jobs can be run immediately, or they can be scheduled as something called a live feed. With a live feed, every time you drop one or more files into the Oracle Object Store, the database processes them automatically, hands off, lights out, completely automatically. You can easily load data from a wide variety of data files. These can be text files, CSV, tab delimited, all the usual things. Those files can be gzipped. They can be Excel spreadsheets with one or more worksheet, files with JSON documents, Parquet files, Avro files. You can copy data from tables in other database instances. And these can come from a variety of locations. Local files on your computer, cloud storage, Oracle, of course, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, any other Swift compatible cloud store can be used. You can even load data directly from GitHub. When loading data from database tables, you can copy data from Oracle and even other vendors' databases. I'm going to do 4 demos today. The first will be loading data from a spreadsheet that's on my Mac, so the Mac up to Autonomous Database. The second will also be from a local file, but this is a file that contains JSON documents. The third will be 2 years worth of sales data being loaded from multiple files in an Oracle Object Store. And as part B to that, I'm going to load a second set of files that is used to update records in that table. So that's a merge operation. And then fourth, I'm going to link to files in Object Store. Those are Parquet files using something called an external table. Demos 2 through 4 are all based on Oracle Live Labs. Oracle Live Labs are free guided tours that you can run in your instance of Autonomous Database, or you can borrow an instance from us for free. So give those a try. So I'm going to dive right into the demos. So I said the first demo was an Excel spreadsheet. So let's take a look at that. So this is a spreadsheet with some economic data, per capita income, by region, and about 50 years worth of data running across his columns. All right, so this is the Database Actions tool suite. I'm going to be focusing on data loading. I'm also going to use the SQL worksheet. To load this spreadsheet, I'm going to choose data load, load data from a local file, and next, I'm going to select the spreadsheet. And the tool is going to create a card. A card represents a data load job. If I had multiple files, I would have multiple cards. I'm going to choose this pencil here to access the settings. It's recommending that we create a table. I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this per capita income. It's an Excel file, so it's already detected all of the settings necessary to load it. So all the format information, the column names, the data types, and so on. And if I select file, we're going to see the data in the file and preview it. So this is what we should get as a table. I'm going to close. And to run the job, I'm just going to smash this green button here. It's not a big file, so it's going to be very fast. But right now, it's creating the table, uploading the file, and it is inserted the records into the table. I'll go back into the settings. We can hit the File tab or the Table tab and confirm that the data was loaded as expected. Good. I'm going to close this. I'm going to go over to SQL Worksheet here, and we can query this. So that's just a different view of the table. So we've just confirmed that we've gotten the data that we expected with the SQL query. All right, so that's it. Loading Excel data is incredibly easy. All right, so for the second demo, we're going to do something a little bit more sophisticated. And that is we're going to load JSON documents from a file on my computer. And what I'll point out here is that we have one document per row, and some of the objects are really simple, right? So we have a title and a value, right? A title object and a value. And other objects are more complex. So if I select cast here, if you're familiar with JSON, you can recognize that this is an array and crew is an array with nested objects, right? So these are more complex. So let's take a look and see what the tool is going to do with this. So once again, I'm going to say load data from local file, press next. I'm going to choose the file. I'm going to open it. I'll check out the settings. It says create table, movies. I'm good with that. And this is interesting. So it's taken the top level objects and it's created columns from those objects. So that's good. And for the simple objects, it can just load the data as is. For the more complex objects like cast and crew, what we're going to see is it's going to load the object into that column, and then I can decide what to do with it later in SQL. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So as we preview it, right, the simple objects, it just loads the data directly into the column. And for the more complex objects, it just loads the entire object into the column. And again, I can decide what to do with it later using SQL. So this looks pretty good. Again, it was set up for me automatically. And once again, we're going to smash the green button and run it. So just as before with the spreadsheet, it is creating the table, uploading the file, and inserting the records into the file. So it's not big, it's going to be pretty fast. There we go. Let's go back in here. We'll look at the table, and this loaded, exactly as expected. So this is awesome. All right, I'm going to close this, and we'll go back over to SQL Worksheet and just select star from movies. And there we go. This is exactly what we expected to happen. So that's great. All right, we're going to return to this, but I'm going to set up the next job, that loading 2 years worth of data, because that's a little bit more involved and takes a little bit more time. This is loading data from an Oracle object store. So the first thing you need to do when you're loading from the object store is set up a cloud location. I've predefined two. A cloud location allows you to save the location, the URI. So this is the actual, location of the bucket. And if necessary, an ID and a password. And it saves this as an object called a credential, encrypted in the database so it can be reused. This is from Live Labs. So this is a public bucket. I don't need a credential. But if you needed one, you would just enter your cloud ID and your cloud password, and it would get saved with location, and then you just reuse it over and over again. I'm going to cancel. So in this case, I'm going to say load data from cloud storage. Press next. And those two cloud store locations appear in this list box. I'm going to choose the movie stream sales and adjustments data. And we can see that it has two folders, movie sales fact This is sales data by month for about 2 years, and adjustments. This is data that's going to be used to update the rows in the table that we create. And this is basically data that applies some discounts to some sales. And this is organized by country. I'm going to load these all at once by dragging the folder. It's created a card. Okay, so created table movie sales fact. It's automatically detected all the formatting. It's proposed column names, data types. It's proposed date format. If we look at the preview, this is what we expect. So we're good to go. So I'm going to smash the green button, start the data load job, and it's creating a table. Now it's uploading that data. So there's a lot more work to do on this one. So let's go back here, and I'm going to just create another tab with database actions in it so we don't disturb the other stuff. And while we're here, I just want to point out a couple things. This is data load, but there's a bunch of data tools here. So usually the first step is loading data, right? But after you load data, you might want to prepare it for query or analysis. So data transforms is a full-featured data preparation application. Insights is kind of interesting. Insights, you point at a table or other objects, and it crawls that data behind the scenes, looking for anomalies, outliers, hidden patterns, things like that. And it tries to point these out to you. And data analysis allows you to define a dimensional model that is a semantic layer. It implements these as these really cool objects called analytic views. And then it has a drill and pivot and charting interface that allows you to get started with the data. So these are things that you really might want to check out sometime. Now, I said we would return to the JSON data. So here we have the last query where we were looking at that. And all I really want to do is point out while we're waiting here is that these complex objects you can parse out using JSON table. So here I'm going to select table and movie cast from the JSON object. Here's cast. And if I query this, I'm going to get the cast of The Godfather, which of course is, a really good movie. There we go. So the data load tool did what it could. It took the top level objects and loaded those directly into columns. These more complex objects require sort of query time interpretation. So this was done at the SQL level. So this should be, it is done already. Great. So that movie sales fact data is already loaded. And what I would like to point out next is that you can use the tool to load data interactively as we are here, but it also shows you all of the code that it generates. So when I selected the SQL tab here, what we see is the create table statement, and then all of the code necessary to load it. So here we see, the identification of the objects in the cloud store and the column names and so on. And when we really get right down to it, there is what's loading the data itself. So this is the DBMS Cloud copy data procedure. So it's kind of up to you. If you want to load interactively GUI point and click and just press that green button and load it, that's fine. I could just copy and paste this into a script and reuse it in that way. So, the tool is super useful for generating code for you. All right. Now let's go to part B here. So we have that movie sales data already loaded. I'm going to say load data from Cloud Store. Next. And now I'm going to load the adjustments data into it. And I'm going to do that by dragging the adjustments column into it. And it's going to load all 45 files at the same time. Now, I don't want to create a table called adjustments. Instead, I want to merge data into the table. So I'm going to say merge data into my movie sales fact. And now it's recognizing I need different settings. So it's asking me, well, what column should I merge on or match on? And I know order number is the merge key. So I'm going to choose order number here, close. And before I actually run that, let me run this query. And what this query does is it just sums actual price, which is basically sales. And what we can notice is it's 160 million, and change. And we're going to see this number change after we do the merge as those records are updated. So once again, I'm going to smash the green button here, press run. And now it's generating a whole lot of code in the back end. It's defining a staging table. It's loading these 45 tables or files into the staging table. Then it's generated the SQL merge commands, and it's executing those. So there's a whole lot going on in terms of code generation and execution. But for me, this is all just point and click, GUI type stuff. All right, so this will run pretty quickly. So it's about half done. So it's loaded data. It's probably loaded data into the staging table, and then it'll move on to the merge step. So think about how much work this would be if you had to code this yourself. It would just be a lot of work. And like before, you can, copy the code. So this is done. And, here is all the code that it generated for you, right? And again, you could just put this in a script if you want. And if we now do the sum, right, we see the values changed, right? It's decreased a little bit because these files actually processed some discounts into those records. All right, so that was really pretty easy and pretty powerful. Now for the last one, we're going to link data. So we're going to create an external table. So instead of load, I'm going to say link. And I'm going to link from the cloud storage. I'm going to choose this customer sales cloud location. And I know that the files are in this cust sales folder. And if we drill down in here, we can see that these are Parquet files. So like before, I'm going to drag the entire folder over here. I'll say yes. I get a card. It's going to propose that we create a new table. Okay, table name cust sales. I could partition it. I'm going to skip. Now the validation is interesting. So because the data isn't going to be loaded into this table up front, I have the choice of actually validating to make sure that the data in the files does match the definition that we've derived. And if I'm completely confident, I could say none. If I want a quick check, I could say sample. And if I really want to be sure, I could do, a full validation, but sample is usually pretty good. And then I'm also going to allow it to access new files as they're loaded into the bucket. So we're good. I'm going to run this. Now, it really doesn't have a whole lot of work to do here because it's not loading the data. So in this case, it's just creating the external table and linking it to the files in the object store and doing a little bit of validation. So that's done. And what I want to do here is actually look at the definition of the table and let you see that it's an external table, right? So create table where the data is in this object store. So that was, again, pretty darn easy. All right, so we did the 4 demos. Hopefully you see that data loading in Autonomous Database is really, really easy. And the thing now is just really go try it yourself, right? And the easiest way to try it is an autonomous database on the free tier. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I had a lot of fun. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.